Raquel and I need to talk about our favorite topic, nuisance abatement, but it better wait till offline.
Okay, so our speaker, bless his heart, says that on his desk he has a sign that says, "The race is not always to the swift, but sometimes to those who keep on running." So that is very motivational. So I just have a lot of stuff on my desk. I'll just be candid with all of you. The piles are firmly and out of camera sight. Oh.
Lori, I'm learning from the best. Me too.
That you have piles or that you just move them out of camera view?
Both.
Okay. I do have a little toy soldier that I found when I was cleaning the toy area. My grandkids left him. So he came to work and he sits here watching me each and every day. So because everybody else went home with the grandkids and he got left behind and they don't want him back. So I brought him here. So.
Well, I definitely file by the pile method. And if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So it needs to stay in those piles. Then I can find it, but it's gotten a little extreme lately. So there isn't anything inspirational on my desk other than the projects.
Okay.
I did try to arrange them so I can maybe be efficient when I'm back in the office in the morning.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? You kind of know which pile it's in. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. So don't mess with the piles. Sherry says she has a cute little coworker. So we will wait a few more minutes. I know people like to join right at 2 o'clock. So, but we will get started here in a few moments. So.
Just a reminder, while we're waiting, we're always looking for stories to share. So if you know of a story or have one in your town, have somebody that's doing something good with housing, let us know. They don't have to be the whole story. We can couple them with somebody else. But what is happening in housing in your town may really inspire somebody else and vice versa. So it's important that we tell those stories.
It doesn't even have to be in Nebraska. If you've been traveling and hear of something going on in another part of the country or region, let us know. We'll do the legwork and investigate. We just need the resource or an idea. So please share. See a few more familiar names: Patty and Sean, Rebecca, welcome. Dusty, Dina, Amber, thanks for joining us. And I see more and more are starting to join us. Carol, I see your name has popped in.
I like Raquel's sign. Yeah.
Yes.
I had my patients tested and I'm negative.
Yes.
I'm with you.
I keep saying that full moon we had this weekend lasted a little longer than normal. So my patience has been tested this week. So, but we'll give just a couple more minutes to let others join us. We will get rolling because I am excited to hear from Cliff today. If you have just joined us and want to tell us what unique things are on your work desk in your chat box, we would be happy to see those responses. We've just been chatting as we get closer to the 2 o'clock hour. Before we get underway, I do want to mention that and thank our partners at the Nebraska Department of Economic Development for their financial support of the HomeNE Learning Network. And so they have been a great partner and we appreciate their confidence and their investment into the statewide learning network. Okay. Well, I think I do want to honor everyone's time and get started with our webinar for April. It feels like it's been a long time because of issues last month. We had to cancel our webinar, so it has been a while since we gathered together, but I can't think of a better presenter and topic to bring to you today on our April webinar. A reminder to all of you who are in attendance that we are streaming on the YouTube channel. So if you or a coworker are encountering difficulties with this Zoom link, just feel free to switch over to YouTube and watch from there. So let me just formally introduce myself. My name is Lori Ferguson, and I'm with South Central Economic Development District. We office here in Holdridge and cover a 13-county region in South Central Nebraska. So thank you for joining us today. Our HomeNE Learning Network continues to grow, and for that, we thank all of you. You are the reason it's growing. The network opportunities and connections that are being made are really because of you and your commitment to this learning network. It's our goal that your organization and your community is seeing housing success as a result of the information and the opportunities that are being provided through HomeNE Learning Network. So whether this is your first webinar or one of many, we just want to welcome you here today. And today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Cliff Mesner of Mesner Development. I have to confess, when I first started taking over webinars in August of 2018, Cliff was my first speaker. I was very nervous and he was very gracious, and it was a wonderful presentation. And I have no doubt that today will be likewise. So before we begin with Cliff today, we want to hear from you. Feel free to enter in your chat box your answers to the questions that are on your screen right now. What interests you about the topic that Cliff is bringing to us today? And what do you hope to know more about today at the end of the webinar? So HomeNE is a learning network, and we learn best when we interact and learn from each other. So we do want to hear your thoughts. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon Heffley. She is the Executive Director of South Central Economic Development District, and she will introduce our speaker.
All right, excited to do this. I hope you're all doing well today. Good afternoon. Welcome to the April edition of the HomeNE 2022 webinar series. South Central Economic Development District serves as the lead agent for this learning network, and we're glad you're here. HomeNE is designed for people from all across Nebraska and maybe outside Nebraska seeking to successfully assess and address their local housing issues. Our purpose is to provide a setting that provides face-to-face and online opportunities to foster interaction, engagement, and skill building for local individuals that are passionate about addressing the housing shortage in their communities, and a setting that empowers and encourages those who participate to apply what they learn through the different avenues available to them. Today, we're joined by Cliff Mesner of Mesner Development. A huge thank you for Cliff. He has almost nothing else to do. We are really fortunate to have him. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Cliff's a 1978 graduate of the University of Nebraska College of Law. He's been involved in community economic development work in Central City and throughout rural Nebraska for over 25 years, serving as the city attorney and economic development director for Central City, taught Cliff the importance of housing to the growth of communities. He has experience in subdivision development, infrastructure extensions, affordable and market rate housing, spec housing, and new neighborhood program design. He's worked with local, state, and federal agencies to bring public housing dollars to small towns in Nebraska and Kansas. And he also has experience in commercial real estate, including the development of several new motels. And something that is not on here is he has single-handedly been responsible for so many investment clubs across Nebraska in our communities. And our district is very fortunate to have some of those. Cliff oversees all aspects of a development project. He works with the owner to complete the design, award the construction bid, and monitor the progress of a project throughout development and construction. He's especially interested in making sure the project meets or exceeds all energy requirements. So with that, Cliff, welcome to our HomeNE webinar, and I will let you go ahead and share your screen.
Let's see. Okay, do you have a picture of four little houses?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we do.
spot. I need to change my my bio on my website. It sounds like I do a lot of stuff in the office that I think somebody else does. But I've got a good team here that we get things done. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what we should be building in our communities. And as this isn't as obvious as we would have thought it should be. I think we've all been heading in the wrong direction in some regards through the years as to what we've been building. So I want to go through some information that we've kind of digested of late. A healthy housing market really should be able to provide housing through a combination of rolling the housing stock and new construction. And we don't really have a healthy housing market right now. So we want to talk about what's gone wrong. In a traditional housing progression, most people rent in their 20s, buy in their 30s, upgrade in their 40s, and sometime in their 60s or 70s, they downsize. And when they have to, they go to assisted living. And the housing that's built behind that would be, multifamily rentals for young people, starter homes for 30s, people in their 40s would be looking for larger homes. When you're downsizing, you're usually looking for townhome units, maybe units that have a homeowners association that takes care of lawn and snow, that sort of thing. And assisted living is sort of self-explanatory. All of that assumes that we have a population that kind of continues with the flow. This is a world population pyramid, which is pretty close to an ideal pyramid. And when you look at it, you see what you expect. We have a lot of people that are under 5. As we get older, we age, and the number of people shrinks, and that all typically happens in a fairly even pattern. It kind of looks like a Hershey's candy kiss. And that market stays stable because the population percentage of each group stays stable. So when you look at this, for example, there are twice as many 5-year-olds as there are 55-year-olds. And you build to that and everything goes to that, and that progression we were talking about moves along with that as we go. Unfortunately, that's not really what we've seen in the United States since 1950. If you watch this as the population moves post-World War II, we start to see some anomalies. It starts off kind of looking like that pyramid, but all of a sudden it starts to bulge in strange places and strange things happen. And it gets a little bit distorted year after year. And we're going to stop here in 1990. This is an interesting one for me because last year I was reading an article in The Economist that was comparing essentially my generation to my daughter's generation. And it said that in 1995, a cohort that consisted of around 35-year-olds own 35% of the real estate by value in the country. And I was part of that group. I was 35 in 1995. Today, the same cohort, a fairly similar sized cohort of people around age 31, which is my daughter's age, owns only 4%. So we've gone from owning a third to 4% in that same group. And if you watch how this has moved since 1990, this bulge kind of keeps moving up to 2000, 2010. It now starts to look a lot like a column. This is an important date, 2010, because 2010 was when the last recession really closed things down. And since 2010, we haven't been building near enough housing any place along the column, let alone kind of where the shoulders are. Look at the people who are 55 and 65. This is what it looks like today. And if you remember the first pyramid we were showing, there were twice as many 5-year-olds as 55-year-olds. In this country today, we actually have more 55-year-olds than we have 5-year-olds. It's not supposed to be that way. We're supposed to be a much smaller percentage of the population than we actually are. And this trend has been showing up ever since World War II. Post World War II, the housing was all driven by the housing needs of nuclear families. Mom and dad and children under the age of 18. It was the leading category. In 1950, it was 43% of our households. In 1970, it was 40% of our households. But today, the nuclear families are only 20% of American households. And what we've really seen here is unprecedented shifts in demographics and lifestyles that have redefined the house and who's in that household. Just from a numbers perspective, in 1970, the average household was 3.5 people. In 2019, it was 2.5 people. Doesn't sound like much, but when you start doing the math, a town of 3,000 people in 1970 needed 838 homes. In 2019, they need 1,190. That's a 42% increase in the number of homes they need, almost 1% a year, just to house the same people that were already there. There's no population growth. That does nothing about houses that need to be replaced. That's just to keep the same population that has always been there. So that puts a lot of pressure on the system. And we're seeing this. This is one of the things that's most interesting about it. We're seeing it as a growing phenomenon across all the ages and incomes. You were seeing it on the tail end because the baby boomers, people like myself, are all becoming empty nesters. There's a huge number of empty nesters out there at this point that are 1 and 2 people households, but we're also seeing it with young people. Young people are getting married 7 years later in life than they did a couple decades ago. And they're having children later in life than they used to. So now we have not only baby boomers that are looking for 1 and 2 person, but we also have young adults that haven't started their families yet. As I said, in 1970, 40% of the households were nuclear. Today, it's under 20. Today, the leading category in households is single people living together. They account for 28% of the household. And the second leading category is couples, accounting for 25%. The third is actually adults living together. Think of first-year teachers that are sharing a place because they can't afford their own house, or traveling nurses. There's a whole series of people out there that are in that group. So the question starts to rise up. Does our housing really match up with the categories that we have? If you look at the top half, 73% of our households have 1 or 2 people in them, but only 38% of our houses are 2-bedroom or less. On the bottom side, only 27% of our households have children anymore, but 61% of our houses are 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, or 5-bedroom units. And there's a mismatch there, in my opinion. And what's happening is, as we're building new houses, a lot of the communities that we're going to still envision a 3-bedroom ranch with a 2-car garage and a full basement, and they want to build out an entire subdivision with that. Well, you've already got 60-some% of your households are 3, 4, and 5 bedrooms, and only 27% of your families have kids. So what you're trying to do is to force single people, couples, adults living together, to buy 3 and 4 bedroom homes. Couples may do that with the idea that they'll have a family someday, but do single people or adults living together, which is almost half of all of our households, really want to buy a 3-bedroom home? Most of them don't. Most of them don't want to invest their money in that. They don't want to give up other things in their life in order to have a 3-bedroom home that they have to take care of and mow the lawn and take care of the snow. Certainly, empty nesters and people who've lost a spouse are not interested in that 3-bedroom purchase. And what's happening is, if we go back to our slide about current housing progression, is that we haven't been building the townhome units that people want to be moving into. That part has been missing. It's not part of what we build. We literally have seniors who are trapped in their 3-bedroom homes because they have no place to go. They aren't ready for and don't want to pay for assisted living. They want their independence, which is usually defined as a car. But they won't pay for a new house as they retire. Most people don't want to retire and then go take on a new house payment. Most people are looking to downsize at that point. We've been building townhomes. We've tried doing some townhomes and some single family homes until very recently. And I think, again, you will see it. We struggle to get the single family homes sold. The townhomes are sold as quickly as we can build them. We can't get them built fast enough. They're sold. They're all sold to empty nesters, frankly. People who seem almost desperate to get out of their 3-bedroom home and get into a new place that has a homeowners association and takes care of the lawn and the snow. This issue is going to get worse. In 2014, we had 46 million that were 65 and older. 2010, we had 56, and in 2020, we had 56, and in 2030, we have 74 million. That's a 60% increase in seniors in a 16-year period. 2 million new seniors a year that are looking for housing. They're probably not looking for a new 3 or 4-bedroom home. That's not what they're after. We've had a lot of people ask us about housing studies of late. And this is one of the things that we think you need to have your housing studies sort out. Because I've seen housing studies where they're finding that they have people who have the ability to move up to a newer house and sell their old house to a couple that's starting out and needs something that's less expensive, but they're not moving. And they can't figure out why they're not moving. The question is probably the age. A lot of the people that have those and have the ability to move up are seniors who don't want to move up to a newer, bigger home. They want to move up to a zero entry house that has somebody else to help take care of the lawn and the snow. So we need to start sorting that out through our housing studies. We also need to start updating our regulatory structure, because most planning and zoning commissions, city councils that we run in front of have a vision of a subdivision filled with single family homes, 3 or 4 bedroom homes that were $200,000 homes and now are $400,000 homes. Their lot sizes are all geared to big lawns or play areas for children. And those are, like I said, 27% of our households. The other 3/4 of our households don't have any children. And that big lawn is just an expense. We find in a lot of places that the multifamily is isolated to another area. Even single family attached duplexes are often pushed off into other locations in some communities. And that makes it very difficult to do that. We're seeing lot sizes that are inappropriate. As I said, we recently had a community, we couldn't build anything less than 7,000 square foot lot size. So we have a duplex that's on 2 lots, and we have 14,000 square feet of lot space there. Nobody goes in the backyard. Nobody's out there. And those regulatory structures are making it difficult to bring alternatives in that match today's demographics. The demographics right now are presenting really a very different challenge for housing development. If you quit thinking about trying to build out that subdivision of single family homes, it gets a different challenge. The cost of family homes has gotten too high priced now. And I realize that for the last year or two, we have been able to sell anything we build as soon as we build it. But given what's happened to construction prices in the last year, those days may be over. And we may be back into that situation of with the increased pricing and the increased interest rate, we may not be able to get those families moved. When you build out that subdivision and you try to build it all with single family homes, it slows down, and the cost of sitting on the infrastructure is an absolute killer. You're paying interest on streets and water and sewer pipes that are buried in the ground that you're not using, and you can't afford to build them out if you can't get them sold. There's a greater need for apartments, but they create a different environment in a lot of our small towns. If you're talking about Grand Island, Hastings, Kearney, you can build apartments and that makes sense. When you start talking about getting people to go in and invest in Holdridge, Cozad, Central City, there's a greater reluctance to that because it's a long-term investment. You're putting your money in that community and leaving it there for 20 years. It's a 20-year payout on the apartments. And it's hard to convince people to make that investment in rural Nebraska when it's much easier and safer to invest in Lincoln and Omaha, because you'll fill them up immediately in those communities. So what we've started doing is starting to talk about combining a mix of development that the community needs for 2 reasons. One is to meet those community needs and recognize what they are. The other, obviously, is just economics. You get a faster absorption, and you can see how all of that might pay out. I'm going to give you 2 examples that I want to run through here. One is Norfolk, and this is a subdivision that we put together. And we originally looked at doing this with 56 single family homes. And when we got into it, it just didn't work. We had TIF, but the TIF was not going to pay off fast enough to actually pay off the infrastructure and the cost of that. And we also discovered that the houses were getting more expensive to build, and the people that we were marketing to was much more limited if all we were doing was single family homes. We were trying to force 1 and 2 people households into buying a 3 or 4 bedroom home. So what we did was we put this subdivision together, and we actually went in and we built 56 apartments, 2 28-unit buildings, one corner. We built 15 rental townhomes, about 1,500 square feet, 2-car garage, single entry townhomes. 22 townhomes for sale and 28 single family homes. And by doing that, we hit multiple markets. The apartments were for people who were used to the apartment life, who liked it, who had moved to town, maybe moved to town, didn't want to buy a house until they found out where they wanted to live in the community. Maybe were saving up money for a down payment while they paid off student debt. These apartments, the first unit was 28 units. It literally filled up the first day. First day we had it open, it was full. The second one, we announced that it took a month to fill 28 apartments. So it filled up quickly and it hit a whole different market. The townhomes for rent were 2-bedroom, 2-car garages. These were, a lot of them were for people who were doubling up, adults living together that maybe were moving to town, trying to save money. First-year teachers that couldn't afford a house, wanted something a little bit different than an apartment, but didn't have snow blowers and lawn and mowers, and were just looking for a spot to land where they had a 2-car garage and felt a little more like a house. Our townhomes for sale were 0 entry, 1,500 square foot, 2-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage, open floor design with an HOA that took care of the lawn and the snow. These we describe them as first-time home buyers and last-time home buyers, but they almost all go to last-time home buyers. They almost all go to empty nesters who are trying to downsize. Those are the people who are the buyers for those in most of the communities. And that's that market that nobody's been feeding it. That's the market that's just been left alone. We also went in and did some single family homes. We built 28 single family homes. We actually just sold the lots off to someone who wanted to go in and build. It's not a market that we're particularly interested in, but that worked for them. They built them out. They built out 5, took 5 more lots and built those, bought another 5 lots and another 5 lots, and built them out over a couple of year period. This project worked really well for a couple of reasons. We got the subdivision put in place. We brought in 4 builders, 4 developers. We built 4 different kinds of housing to hit multiple markets, and the whole thing got built out in a year. So we weren't sitting on street and water and sewer costs for an extended period of time without getting anything out of it. It just all happened very, very quickly, and it was kind of magical in a way. That's easier to do in a town of 24,000 than it is in a small town. But Schuyler is a community of about 7,000. And we've done essentially the same thing there. We just had to do it, we had to pace it a little bit differently. We've built 24 unit apartment building, got another 16 that's coming on. We built 14 LIHTC units for seniors with restricted income. We built 4 townhomes with 6 more to go, and 10 single family homes. So we built 52 units. We're going to do 22 more. We just had to spread it out a little bit differently there than we did in Norfolk. In Schuyler, it was a matter of layering in multiple sources, funding sources to get at the mixed developments that we needed. We started off with 2 homes that we built. One was just a pure spec home that we built, and one was a spec home. We made them start an investment club. We made their investment club build one. We built those two together. And that gave us kind of a test of what the population was. The second thing we built was 8 single-family homes that were done under the NIFA Workforce Housing Initiative pilot program. We started those houses at 205 and ended up selling them at 230. And I say that because these were the hardest to sell. We put them on the market at 205 and they didn't sell. And it took 3 or 4 years to actually sell them. At the end, we were selling them for 230, but they were the hard product to sell. Then we built a LIHTC project, a low-income housing tax credit project. Those, of course, fill up instantly, but it's a matter of whether or not you can get it funded. We went in and built an apartment building, and that filled up in fairly good order. And that's worked. And then we built the townhomes, which were the easiest. And again, those all sold right away before they were done, and they all sold to singles that were looking for a place to go. So what we've learned is that those townhomes are far easier to sell than single-family homes. They hit a whole different price point. And if someone wants to come and build a 3-bedroom home in your community, you encourage that. That's great. That's what you want to be doing. But I'm not sure that's where we want to be putting our efforts and our public funds. If you're trying to build single-family homes, you're probably looking at $300,000 homes instead of $200,000 townhomes. And that means you're going to build 2 homes for every 3 townhomes. And I think the money is better directed at those lower units. We've done, I don't know how many, we've done projects in 4 or 5 different communities now with the townhomes, and the highest price single-story homes we've sold is $205,000, and that's a market that's been wide open. That number is going to move, of course, to about 230 now. But we were selling them for 200 when homes were going for 300. So it's hard to get someone to go in and buy more house than they want, take another $100,000 of debt and buy a house that they have to take care of the lawn and the snow. It's been easier just to move them into the townhomes. So in summary, our housing market right now is driven by some really unusual demographics. This is not the normal thing that we've seen. The baby boomers have just created a bulge in the market. The market hasn't reacted to that in every place that they might. You have to understand the senior problem to understand what to do in your community, because if you have a senior problem, and all Nebraska cities do, and you're trying to build and ignore that, you create some problems. And then frankly, you have to build to multiple markets. You can't just go in and build single family homes and make it work, because that's not where the bulk of the buyers are. And those people are all trying to figure out how to pay for an expensive home that's getting more expensive every day with rising interest rates. On the townhomes that we sell, almost every one of them is sold subject to them selling their own house. That means they already have the equity. They're not worried about the loan. The interest rate doesn't matter to them. They just need to get their own house sold. And they're selling that 3-bedroom home for about the same thing as they're paying for the townhome. And they're moving a family into a 3 or 4 bedroom home for a couple $100,000. They're moving into a townhome for a couple $100,000, and that's doable when building a $300,000 or $350,000 new home is not. So that's my presentation. I have no idea how long that went. It was too long or too short, but that's the point I wanted to make. So I will shut up and answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you, Cliff. And it was just perfect. So no worries about length of time. We do have quite a few questions for you and perhaps maybe the group as well that have been entered in the chat box. So if you're good to go, I'll just start asking some questions.
Okay.
Okay. So Dina wanted to know, what does housing look like for multi-generational families? Do you have some statistics or experience, thoughts on those?
We don't a lot. It's been kind of interesting in the subdivisions that we've been doing. That the housing isn't related, but we end up with multiple families in the subdivision. We were talking about one of the families we had the other day. Somebody went in and bought one of our houses, and then we realized their mother was on the block and their niece was on the block. But it wasn't anything that we did with the housing other than they just liked it there and thought the pricing was right.
It's about models for tiny homes. Any experience, any connections to tiny homes that you're aware of?
We've looked at the tiny home model. We've actually tried to design a couple of spots for them. But in some regards, we found that our duplexes, which are two small homes pushed together, does the same thing because you're squeezing things down, you're squeezing your space down. By putting them two together, it fits into a residential neighborhood in the communities that we work in better than the tiny homes do. And where we've looked at tiny homes, we've tried to put together a cluster of them so that it doesn't look like a little home next to a big home. So you try and find that place to put that cluster together. And then you're servicing one market. Whereas putting the townhomes together as a duplex or a triplex, it fits into a residential neighborhood, and you can put single family homes next to single family attached, and it doesn't stand out.
Okay. I think there's a question from Star later in my question list here, but can you give us some examples of communities where you might be doing that?
Where we're doing townhomes?
The smaller size townhomes in place of the actual tiny home.
Well, we're building our duplexes. We've done Wayne, Norfolk, Schuyler, Aurora, Hastings, Holdridge, doing Cozad and Grand Island now. Looking at it in some other communities, but those are ones where we've purchased homes and are actively involved in doing.
Thank you. Mary has a comment and a question. She said that they've based their economy on population growth, which is unsustainable in the long term. So how do they nurture a healthy economy that is not based on population growth? Thoughts?
What community are we talking about?
I believe it's Superior.
Okay. Well, one of the problems that's out there right now is that, and I don't know what you do if you're basing it on a population growth that you don't think is going to be there. That just sounds like a bad plan. But one of the things that communities get confused by is they're saying, well, we don't have any population growth, therefore we don't need any housing. And if you think about it, we've seen the reduction in housing size, household size, has caused us to need almost 1% a year of, um, of new housing. And think about deterioration in housing that needs to drop off the market. We use a 1% rule. If you think about a house that was 100 years old, 100 years ago, only half the households in America had indoor plumbing. None of them in Nebraska had electricity because electricity didn't come in until the second Roosevelt administration in the 30s. So a 100-year-old home didn't have electricity, maybe didn't have plumbing. It's had a major renovation. It's still in place. So for a house to last 100 years without a complete renovation or being rebuilt, it's kind of the end. So we're saying 1% of your housing needs to be replaced every year just because it's gotten old. So between those two items, we've talked about needing to build out 2% of your housing every year. If you're a community with 1,000 homes, that means you need 20 new homes a year just to maintain the population that you have. If you're not building that, your population has been shrinking. And so I think we need to look very carefully at that, because we have communities, and you can drive through them, you'll see them when you drive through them, that haven't done anything, haven't built any new housing in decades. And the communities look really old and tired and run down, and you have no ability to attract new homes into that environment. And I think part of that's just not recognizing the need that was there.
Okay. In your experience, does the nuisance abatement program lead to more housing in a community, or just a cleaner looking community?
Some communities have done a great job of doing new housing with that. Those of you at SCED are far better able to answer that than I am, but from what I've seen on the outside looking in, some communities have just cleaned up, but other communities have opened up that space and reused it very, very successfully. And I think it's done some great things in some communities, but you have to take the second step. You got to get a house built there.
I don't know if, yep, Sharon, go ahead.
I think it's a long game. You definitely clean up first, but sometimes it just takes years. But Superior is the perfect example of that. They have removed a lot of houses through the nuisance abatement program, but they now have put in how many through their boom project? 5+?
There will be 6 when they're done.
Yeah. And so that's a direct result. Now, are other people building as an indirect result? I don't know that. Yeah, Dina, maybe we need a study on the return on investment on that. Franklin has done a great job of taking out some dilapidated. We haven't been as quick. We sat down a couple of years ago, ready to replace on some lots, some houses that they bought that they demolished, and COVID contractors, all that. We're just kind of getting back to that conversation. So it's not a fast turnaround, but there isn't anything. Housing is the most painful thing I've ever done. I don't know. Bless you, Cliff, that you've done it so many years, because it's about to cause me to drink.
Are they using rural workforce housing money to rebuild in those communities where they're getting some empty lots?
Superior has actually trust fund money for the ones that they're doing right now. They did their boom project through the year the trust fund did the, what they call it?
Demonstration and innovation program, where you submitted your ideas for the funds.
And so, yeah, and in Franklin, we would be looking at rural workforce. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The thing that I like about that program is that what Messer Development Company and groups like us do, we come into a community and we have to build 8 to 12 at a time, just at an absolute minimum, to make it work. Because we're coming from the outside, we're often bringing in outside contractors. And we have to do that because most local contractors aren't used to building 8 or 10 at a time. They're used to building 1 or 2 at a time. The bad thing about that is every community needs to create its own contractor workforce. And when you're going in and doing the single family, you're building in those vacated lots, that's something we can't do. That's something that really fits in well with what your local contractors are doing. And if you put a program in place that's happening, and the local contractors know that there's always a place to go with the next one, it's easy for them to stay in the game, grow their business, and make that work for the community. And I just think that's a really important piece that we can't do. And I think it opens things up. It's hard for those contractors to go out and do a subdivision because they can't fill it fast enough to make sense of it. That's what we end up doing, but we can't do what they do. And so it just really matches up well with the work that we do, but it's not what we do.
The conversation in Superior is using those trust funds to build smaller entry-level slab-on-grade homes. And so if some individuals are interested in that information, I'm happy to make those connections. So if anyone or everyone would just send me a message, I'll get them in touch with people in Superior. So always a place for multiple approaches to housing. So I've got some more questions here for you. This is a COVID type of question, but has the increase in remote work increased a need for a three-bedroom house, excuse me? Are you starting to see anything along those lines that maybe there will be a return to the need for a third bedroom?
We haven't really seen it with what we're doing. And that's maybe because there's so many 3-bedroom homes out there and that's not where the shortage is. We've started to look at it with our apartment buildings. And we've been asking the question, should every apartment building have an office space, a shared office space with a coffee maker and a printer and a scanner? And is that a feature that would be nice to have in a multi-family environment? But we haven't looked at it with our townhomes.
With the houses. Okay, super. So Judy wanted to know, how do you get a contractor to go along with building smaller homes? There's a definite need for senior townhomes in their community, which is North Platte. How do you encourage that with the local contractors? You just said they need to build their local workforce and contractors. How do you get that partnership?
All of this stuff that we've been doing, I kind of have to laugh when I started to see the numbers and the demographics, because what it really did was it explained to us what had been happening to us. Because every time we build a 3-bedroom home, it's painful. We have a hard time getting it sold, completed. We have a really hard time making money on it. Every time we do a 2-bedroom, 0-entry townhome, it sells instantly. Our problem is the other. We can't get it built fast enough for them. They're standing in the front yard with their household goods trying to move in, and we don't have the house finished. So if you get the contractor started on it, there's money to be made one place. There's a lot of pain the other place. I think they'll get to it when they finally get started on it. They'll realize it's profitable. It works. It makes sense for them. And they all want to build $500,000 and $600,000 farm homes, but with interest rates going up, that market may be gone.
Got a couple more questions here for you. Sorry, I'm right there. They continue to enter them and they're great. And I want to kind of combine them. One housing study that has been done in a community is showing the most need for those 3 to 4 bedroom homes which are very expensive, as you've mentioned. How do they do it affordably?
That's really a battle. That's why in the other communities, we've mixed them in. Okay. We put 28 single family homes in Norfolk, but we included with those the apartments and the townhomes, because if we had done that whole thing with just single family homes, it wouldn't create enough TIF to pay for the streets and the utilities. We'd have had to add another $72,000 or $720,000 to the TIF, which was going to add at least $15,000 to $20,000 to every home. So by mixing them together, that helped bring down the cost of the single family homes, because the TIF was more powerful. And I could, how to buy that down is critical, but and difficult. And we've all tried programs and other ways to do that. But I was recently having a conversation with a community that said, well, how do you buy down a $325,000 home so that a first year teacher can afford it? And the answer is you don't. You can't. There's just not enough money to buy it down that far. You have to build something different, and people have to move up. You're better off, in my opinion, if you need 3 and 4 bedroom homes, to see if you can move seniors out of a 3 or 4 bedroom home and move a family into that 3 or 4 bedroom home.
If I'm curious, where you're building the townhomes and moving the seniors into those, you're seeing those family homes come open?
Yes.
And are they selling well as is, or are they needing renovation first? Are they going through a transition where a contractor buys them and, I don't know, spruces them up, or are they going right to the end user? Do you know?
I think they're all going to the end user. I know of one that needed to go in and do some repairs. They had a problem with the basement wall. The problem that we've run into is they decide they want to buy our townhome, and they call us up and say, I want to buy it. I need to sell my house. I want to buy it with a closing date 2 months from now, so I can get my house sold, or 3 months from now. And then they call me back 2 days later and say, our house is sold and we've got to be out in 10 days.
I need it yesterday.
Yesterday. And I think we've kind of been violating the rules. I think we moved out of the 16 homes we sold on this Market Street in Hastings. I think 8 of them moved in early because they sold their own house out from underneath them, and they weren't ready to close on ours. The one house that did need to get fixed, apparently they had a problem with the basement, but she told me she had 23 people look at the house.
Oh,
And so they had to go in and fix. They all said they wouldn't do it because of the basement, so she had to spend some money fixing the basement. But I assume it'll get sold now. But other than that, they've just sold instantly every place.
I think that's true here in Holdridge. I mean, it doesn't take very long at all for a rightly priced home, and even a crazy priced home to sell, because there's just such a demand right now. It's definitely a seller's market. So we're going to begin wrapping up. There's a question just more along the lines of Mesner development. What does it look like in the next 20 years? What do you hope to accomplish? What's the next step for you guys?
For us, I don't know. For me personally, the home I'm most interested in is just north of Kona on the big island of Hawaii. We have 2 people that have come back to our office, Chris Lenz and Ashley Solt, who both used to work for us, and then they went to work for developers in St. Louis and Indianapolis, and have come back with a lot of experience under their belt at this point. And they're trying to figure out just how much they can take on. And what we're going to do depends on what those two are going to do. But they have an interest in doing both the affordable housing and the workforce housing. We're not going to do any top-end housing. That's not our thing. That's not what we're interested in. But right now, the affordable housing isn't enough in the state. There just isn't enough there. We have to do the workforce housing and hit the people between 80 and 120% of area median income. So that's our category. That's what we're shooting for.
Well, I think I speak for all of us who've been on today. You have left your mark on the housing development world in rural Nebraska and Kansas. And presentation today was great as always. Great information, a very active chat box. So there is definitely interest in what you're sharing and what you're saying. So can you tell us once again how to contact you? We did take your information down.
The easiest way is just Cliff, CLIFF, at Messnerlaw, MESNERLAW.com. My cell is 308-940-0545. And if you're not in my contact list, you'll have to leave a message because I probably won't answer it the first time I see it. Because when I do that, somebody is asking for money.
Okay. And yes, we've had a couple comments. Your slides will be available. Those will be sent out to everyone who is registered probably the first of the week. So be looking for those in your inbox. So thank you for those questions and reminders that I needed to share that. So I do want to just remind you that today's presentation by Cliff, as well as all past webinars, will be made available on and are available on our website, which is sked.us/HomeNE. So Josh, if you want to put that up briefly. There we go. So I should give kudos to Josh too. He is filling in Sherry's absence. So great job to him. So this is just our gallery of some past speakers, and Cliff, thank you again for what you're doing. We do want to let you also know today that we are announcing our next spring gathering date and event. And I'm just really excited. Every time we plan one of these, I get excited, and I think everyone is better than the last. But today we are announcing that the site of our spring gathering is going to be Wood River. We are convening in Wood River for a one-day event on Tuesday, June 7th. And we kind of stole our title from the city of Wood River themselves. They have a motto of dream big, plan accordingly, take action. So we're going to be focusing on several rural communities who are stepping up to create their own housing success, and hearing from several of those communities as well throughout the day. So registration is live. You can end the webinar with us and go register for that spring gathering event. And I am looking forward to that. If you're interested, there are scholarships available through the Nebraska Development Network, Central Region, and contact myself or Kelly Jawicki to help pay for the cost of attending a gathering in Wood River. So, and also as we wrap up today's event, I just want to remind you that our next webinar will be on May 19th. And our speaker will be Melissa Jackson, and she has joined us today. Melissa, do you want to just give us a little bit of a flavor of what you'll be talking about?
Sure. Thank you, Lori, and thank you, Cliff, for that information today. That was great. I am Melissa Jackson, Director of Economic Development for the City of Cambridge. Cambridge has a population of about 1,100 people, but we also have a lot of exciting things happening, whether it's our school, all of our local businesses, or housing. I will say that we have a very forward-thinking, progressive economic development board, and we're super thankful for that. So next month, I will be talking about our free lot program, which is in our Harvest Meadows redevelopment district on the east side of town, our builders incentive program, and a new program that was just approved in February, which is our housing rehab program. At the end too, I will also touch on our down payment assistance program that is not funded with LB 840 dollars, but it is funded by local grant monies. So I hope you can join us.
Hey, looking forward to it. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank
So,
you, Lauren.
yeah, so you'll want to come back again on May 19th and hear from Melissa and see all the good things that are happening in Cambridge. So once again, Cliff, I just want to say thank you for joining us today. Your time and effort and just knowledge have been greatly appreciated by each and every one of us. So thank you for that. So are there any last thoughts, comments, or questions from anyone? If not, thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Cliff, thank you again if you're still on.